Hi everyone, and welcome to Week 9, Module 9, Evaluation for Systems Change, Collective Impact, and Strategy Evaluation. As my colleagues Jess and Russ have detailed, this week we'll be posting 3 videos on Monday, each dealing with one reading, and each reading's framework being applied to fictional nonprofit, Heal the World. A summary discussion post will be shared on Sunday. In this video, I will be looking at Strategy Evaluation, Emerging Processes and Methods by Patricia A. Patrizi. As a refresher, here is background information on Heal the World. We are looking at Heal the World 1 year later. It's been a year since Heal the World conducted an extensive program evaluation to determine how their organization was enacting systems change. After making an impact in their community and taking great steps to achieve their mission, the Heal the World organization has grown, but with all growth comes changes and concerns, including concerns about their overall organizational strategy. Heal the World is now looking to evaluate their organizational strategy. But before we can do that, we first need to be able to define what is strategy. This is because strategy can be defined differently by different stakeholders and actors. Patrizi notes that depending on a multitude of factors, the definition of strategy can be subjected to broad interpretation. Patrizi also offers a loose definition of strategy, namely, the strategy is all efforts that more or less align towards a goal. As an evaluator, in order to define what an organization's strategy is or understand how it works, we need to understand the nature of the organization's work as fully as possible. There are a number of potential sources for organizational strategy. These can include organizational framing documents, such as the charter, vision, and mission, interviews with key organizational players, such as the ED or chair of the board. We can review the work done by the organization, and we can also review the organizational outputs, outcomes, and goals. However, things are not always what they seem. Our experience as strategy evaluators has taught us that we need to be aware of a few factors, and Patrizi has distilled these key factors into 6 distinct themes. The first is that there's no organizational or collective view of strategy. This isn't a new insight per se, but merely a reflection of the fact that strategies, goals, and so on are viewed through a subjective lens. Strategy may not be limited to the actors or the space or any time considered. An organization's current strategy may be rooted in decisions made outside of the evaluation period. As evaluators, we need to be aware of this and recognize that we need to go beyond our initial frame. Strategy documents. What you write may not be what you do. Documentation does not tell the whole story, and we need to be aware of this when we are evaluating organizational strategy. The failure of objectives to reveal strategy. One should not assume that there is an easily established link between an organization's objectives and its strategy. Strategy evaluation is not program evaluation. Our goal is not to evaluate an organization's specific programs or projects. It is to evaluate the organization's strategy as a whole, and we must always keep our eye on this bigger picture. And finally, we need to understand who is the strategy-making entity. We need to understand and factor in both the acknowledged and unacknowledged roles of the many contributing to an effort of this scale. We also need to apply the lessons provided by the Mintzberg framework, which boils down to the 4 Ps. The first is that strategy as a plan. Namely, we need to use theories of change, logic models, and similar plans as data for our evaluation efforts. To understand strategy, an evaluator needs to probe for perspective, as perspective reflects a number of internal values and drivers to strategy. These can include values, belief, and culture. Strategy as position. Position literally is the place where an organization aims to have an effort and where it discerns advantages and opportunities to reach outcomes. And finally, strategic evaluation requires understanding and recognizing patterns. Pattern recognition is our most important skill as strategy evaluators. And now, here is one suggested way of evaluating a strategy. This, coming from the reading, describes guidelines for gauging what a strategy is, evaluating relationships among strategic elements, organizational approaches to strategy, and strategy execution. But remember, these are guidelines. These are not edicts. Because strategic evaluation involves trying to understand the mind and vision of an organization's strategic drivers, we need to be able to adapt our evaluation to suit the patterns and practices of those who drive the strategy. Patrizi suggests that in the same way that strategy enactors are like jazz musicians in the way that they adapt, connect, and improvise their skills, knowledge, and experience into developing strategy, strategy evaluators also need to be in tune, pun intended, and apply the same jazz framework to the evaluation. In other words, we are just applying a developmental evaluation approach. Developmental evaluation provides a perspective framework for tracking strategies that anticipates that some aspects of strategy will be implemented as envisioned, some aspects of strategy will not be realized, and some unanticipated opportunities will emerge that will be incorporated into and thereby alter what takes place at the intersection between strategic intent and strategy execution. Let's take a closer look at Heal the World. Our perspective evaluation should begin by focusing on the charismatic and entrepreneurial CEO who still leads the organization today. Charismatic leaders inspire people in different ways, and so it is plain to see that the CEO's vision drives the organization's work and potentially its strategy, and how the various staff members interpret the CEO's vision also drives their work. This type of insight might help us to construct what the organizational strategy is. Mention is also made of the AAA approach. We should examine the history and intent behind these words and framing, as well as see how well each of these are implemented in the day-to-day work of the organization. My colleagues have talked about the household waste diversion campaigns, and as strategic evaluators, we are interested in knowing what was the intent of these programs, what was implemented, changed during the implementation, and did the program accomplish its intended results. Above all else, as strategic evaluators, we must not be afraid to interrogate and challenge organizational assumptions and norms. Patrizi suggests that by serving as a productive, oppositional force to challenge assumptions, with data, of course, we actually help the organizational strategists clarify and understand their own strategy that much better. In closing, I'd like to pose the following questions to you all to consider, both for prospective strategy evaluation for Heal the World, as well as proposing strategy evaluations in general. What else do you think an evaluator would need to ask if they are evaluating Heal the World's organizational strategy? How can you ensure that as an evaluator, you are assessing organizational strategy and objectives and not programs? And finally, what skills do you think an ideal strategy evaluator should possess? Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to your comments in the discussion below.